Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Now, the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at JustSaying, no GWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to get us in your ear on Spotify and to check out our bets at Just Saying Football. In the Discord, by the way, that's where to get our bets, so that's my bad.
Heck yeah.
Moving into this, my guy, it is divisional round. Wild card's over. Vikings lost. Tragedy. Brutal loss. We'll get into that in a little bit. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, man, we are down to the last 8 teams. It is getting real. We got a possible matchup of the year. We usually say we got our games of the week, but we have a possible matchup of the year in this episode. Definitely got a bunch of news and notes, and we got a lot of interesting stories coming off of last week. The Packers, Vikings, Bucks all out. A shocker in LA with LA with Houston winning. And then, now you got the Chiefs and Lions coming off the bye. This is going to be, you got Lamar, Josh Allen. This is going to be a heck of a week.
Yeah, tough loss all around. Into our news and notes, David Montgomery is set to come back to play this Saturday, which is huge news for the Lions offense. He tore his MCL, but hey, he's built different. Linebacker Nakobe Dean for the Philadelphia Eagles is out for the playoffs with a torn patellar tendon in his knee, which is a tough loss for the Eagles as they host a divisional game this weekend. Zay Flowers has an outside chance to play this weekend in the divisional round, but that's not probable. It's probably most likely that he's not going to play. It's looking like, honestly, guys. Mike Vrabel has been hired as new head coach of the New England Patriots. Yes, we're already in that time already where head coaches are getting hired. And Mike McCarthy and Dallas are unable to come to terms to an agreement. So he's a free agent, and he is going to sign with a new team potentially. That's what everybody has been saying. So keep that in mind. All right, Saturday games. Houston Texans making their way to Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Chiefs are favored in this one, -8.5. Over-under here of 41.5. This game's at 4:30 p.m. on Saturday. What are your thoughts going into this one? The Texans defense, 4 interceptions last week. Insane.
Yeah, and Derek Stingley had 2 of them. You got to watch out for him. Top 3 pick we loved coming out of college, and definitely, a lot of big theme last week in that beatdown really against the Chargers. The Texans, they had the run game going with Joe Mixon, and they were able to kind of get everything going on their defense. That's what they're going to need this week going into Arrowhead. Their defense to really step up. They are top 11 in both with scoring, with passing and rush yards a game. But Kansas City, they are one of the better defenses. I know you'll talk about that and how that's the next factor. But, the Chiefs, I feel like they're going to have to do their classic Andy Reid thing here. They're going to have to run Pacheco and Hunt so that, the Texans can't get into that rhythm with Mixon like they did last week.
Yeah, you got to utilize both these running backs, I think, more than anything if you're the Chiefs. You've kind of seen this offense slow down a little bit, and they've been reliant on this defense. We've kind of been seeing it week in and week out, which is very different for them. But hey, they're 15-1 in the 1 seed, so the formula is still working, and Patrick Mahomes still wins in these tight games. But it's all going to come down to C.J. Stroud, I think, ultimately. What is he able to do? What is it that he cannot do? Because they're going to need a little bit more out of him than they got last week. I don't know if they're going to be able to get 4 interceptions, right? The same way that they did. And let's be honest, not all of those were also Herbert's fault. A few of those went off some hands of receivers, to be honest. So something's happened like that. Not necessarily Stingley's. He was just goated that way last week. But it's going to be tough to do this. I do think that this is a much better Kansas City defense. We've kind of seen them rely. I think they're like 18th against the pass, or 4th against the rush, 4th best scoring defense. These are all going to be really important things. You and I talked about it. It's a weird time right now for the Chiefs. It's like they've had 25-ish days of rest. So
almost a month.
Almost a month. Is all that rest bad? Because they've had all this time to rest. You know that they're grinding. They're professional athletes. They've been in the postseason before. But they just have so much time all of a sudden. Or is it like, now they're really planned for this offense? They're going to get a lot of formations that you've seen in the postseason before with new sets of plays and different things going on. I think that's going to happen. I'm going with the Chiefs. They're at home. They're the number 1 seed. The Arrowhead fans are going to be there. I do think it's going to run the AFC. The AFC Championship is going to run through Kansas City. I don't think it's going to be this week for the Texans, sadly.
Yeah, I'm riding with you, Kansas City, on that. We got a big surprise from the Texans last week as the underdog beating LA, but that just won't be the case here. You got Kansas City undefeated at home, 8-0 this year. Not a team I want to, make any of my picks against here. But I'm expecting, because that we're expecting KC to be up, I would like all the plays on their running backs this week. It's just weird to, you never know who's going to get the ball in the passing game, but Mahomes is going to get it done.
Yeah, and I do think, again, Kelsey, like the
Yeah.
rest, these things are going to help. They've been here before. They're going to somehow take off. These defenses in the AFC are going to need to step up. And the Texans have a good one. Let's see what they're able to do. Moving this along, Washington Commanders making their way to Detroit to take on the Lions. Lions are favored in this one by also minus 8.5 with an over-under here of 55.5. That's probably because of how frequently and how much the Lions score, because they have the number one scoring offense. Can this Washington Commanders team slow them down?
Yeah, I think that Washington can definitely kind of pace with them. You're looking at Washington right now, and you're seeing the fifth best rushing offense. They can definitely maintain high scoring games. They're both teams in top 5 scoring categories when it comes to scoring points. So I'm expecting that 55.5 to hit, just because the defenses are not the strong suits of both of these teams. But obviously, we've seen a lot out of Jahmyr Gibbs going into these weeks without Montgomery. Now you get Montgomery back. I think that plays a huge factor. Lets Dan Campbell play how he wants to play and not how they've had to adjust these last few weeks. Even, Sean, you've been talking about it. Jahmyr Gibbs on the goal line, he's great, but sometimes you can see the struggle, and that's where Montgomery comes in. I think that they're going to have to really contain Jaden Daniels. I believe his over-under last week for carries was 9.5, and I believe he had that just in the first half. He leads the team in rushing. He has almost 900 yards of offense just on his legs, and then 3,500 through the air. So definitely going to be a threat this weekend. Neither of us expected him to do that, but we talked about it off camera. When you're doing stuff the way he did last week, you have to look at this and say, hey, I don't know, maybe they could cover this 8.5. We thought the same with Denver last week, but obviously didn't work. I mean, I'm going with Detroit, but do you feel like I'm wrong thinking it could be a close, high-scoring game, or do you think Detroit can just run away with it?
I think it could be a close game. I don't think that won't negate that it could be high scoring. I think we've seen Jaden Daniels put up points time and time again, but we've also seen this Lions do like 2 plays, touchdown, then they're already off the field, and you're like, oh my God, we're down 14 like that. It just sort of happens week in and week out with them. The one bright spot for Washington, they have the 3rd best passing defense in the NFL. They only gave up 189 yards a game. Dan Quinn, people forget, he was part of that Legion of Boom. He was the defensive coordinator. Yeah. All right,
it's true. People do forget.
Great secondary. When his time in Atlanta, he did have a good defense for a handful of years. There were some tough years, but when he was good, that team had a great defense. This team is solid. I do think that they can stop the Lions' offense in key moments. What the Lions do the best is just like build together great game plans, and then they capitalize on the mistakes that you make so well. And they do that week in and week out. Ben Johnson's going to open up this playbook even more. You thought you've seen trick plays? Get ready for even more, Dan Skipper. You're getting a touchdown in the postseason. I don't know when. Don't put that on a bet this week. But at some point, it's bound to happen because that's what they kind of do. I'm liking Detroit in this one, but I wouldn't be surprised if Washington keeps this close and maybe shows the formula for the NFC Championship on maybe how to beat Detroit. If not, it's Detroit's season, I think, to go to the Super Bowl, which pains me to say as a Vikings fan.
Yeah, and it could be tough. We definitely love Detroit this year. We both loved them, going into the off season. But when you look at it, all the way dating back to 2013, the Lions are 4-1 against Washington. They've known how to play this team, and they're at home where they play better than almost anybody else. Right now, Lions 7-2 at home this year. They've even been better on the road, 8-0. So, this is a team you can trust, and they will be one of the teams representing the NFC in the NFC Championship next week, which sounds crazy to say.
Yeah, and do also just want to say, shout out Washington. Just, this is what happens when you get good ownership, good front office, and a good head coach. This is what you can do, everybody. Woody Johnson, Jets. Moving this along, Sunday now. Los Angeles Rams making their way to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Eagles are favored in this one by -6 with an over-under here of 43.5. Now, Eagles fans at one point were booing Philadelphia at 10, being up 10-0. That's mainly because it felt like they should have been up more. What are your thoughts going into this one? Is this going to be another 9-sack game for the Rams?
I hope it is, but this offensive line has not been letting Jalen Hurts get hit just like that this year. Obviously, we saw the rookies stepping up last week, Fisk and Verse, who we've loved all year, coming out of FSU. And you're looking at the Rams right now. I think that, they got to get Puka involved the way they were last week. Just getting him open. It seems like this guy is just open no matter what route he runs. It looks like people just aren't covering him, but you know that they are. Going to be a good matchup for Quinyon Mitchell this week. Huge thing for the Rams. You give Cooper Kupp one target in a game that you're up. You decide to throw him a deep ball while you're up 2 possessions. Why don't you give this guy more of the game? What did Cooper Kupp do to Matthew Stafford? I don't know. We'll have to find out or what's going on there. But, I think the Rams right now, the way that they can run with Kyron, they got him involved in the passing game, which they haven't done much this year of. I kind of like them on the road here. The Packers, kind of gave Philly a little bit of fight, but they had so many injuries. I think the Rams, we've seen them so healthy. They're playing for so much right now. And even though they're traveling, I still think that they can play a great game and pull out the win as an underdog.
The Eagles had the best total defense in yards, the best passing defense this year, and not the best run defense, but a pretty decent one overall, okay? And they didn't let up too many points, and that showed last week. They play a good defensive game. You need more from Jalen Hurts, that's for sure. I think only 150-something yards last game. That's not going to cut it. You have to be able to find ways to score and to move the ball downfield to your playmakers like A.J. Brown, so that way he's not reading a book on the sideline, despite whether or not that's what he does, okay?
Another guy who didn't get targets last week.
Seriously. So, it just has to begin to happen, I think, for Philadelphia. But what I do like about them is I think this defense is scary. I think they can really sort of set the pace of the game, and that's what you need in this time, like a defense that's able to do this. Now the Rams are coming to you. It's going to be potentially snowy out there in Philadelphia, which is huge to keep in mind. These Rams use the indoor or warm weather games. Now all of a sudden you're going outside. It's going to be cold no matter what in Philly, but now there might be snow. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be an exciting time. Saquon Barkley's looking to get to the NFC Championship and play Detroit, or if not, somehow be at home and play Washington, which would be an interesting NFC Championship game because Washington kind of plays well against them.
NFC least who?
But no, it's going to go through Detroit. But that's what the Philadelphia's hoping for. I think they're going to get the win this weekend. I do like them more than anything. I think that the teams to get an upset, I feel like it might be the Rams. To your point, though, they're like the Eagles didn't necessarily move the ball too well against a beat-up Packers team, so that's worrisome. And they did get a lot of rest.
It's true, and I think that, like you said, it could be a good Saquon game. Definitely, he showed up and showed out last week and even gave up that touchdown at the end. I think the Rams, they're playing right now for a lot. And, like you mentioned, if we pick Detroit, we both picked Detroit. So if either of these teams go, you're going to have Philly at Detroit, which is going to be an awesome matchup. And then you're going to have Stafford going back at Detroit with a revenge game and a lot big chip on his shoulder with the LA Fires going on. And, they're definitely, he made that a big emphasis of what they're going on this run for.
Absolutely. All right, I'm looking down because I had to make sure for this next game that this line didn't change because I couldn't believe it. Because this is the game of the year. Because I couldn't believe that I wrote this in our write-up for this week, and it was right at the time I wrote it. I know it was right, and I just wanted to double-check. That's why I was looking down. So this is the game of the year, by far. Because winner of this game most likely wins MVP without question. Despite performance, it's about the win. We're the Baltimore Ravens making their way to Buffalo to take on the Bills. This is at 6:30 p.m. on Sunday. Weird timing, I know. Baltimore is favored in this one by -1.5. Baltimore's favored in this one by -1.5 with an over-under here of 51.5.
1.5 spread.
The spread didn't change since when I wrote it this morning. What are your thoughts going into this one? These are the two best quarterbacks this season.
Absolutely, man. And I know that, you will be breaking down just how good they've been and how good they are compared to each other. The main thing here is everybody knows I'm big on Baltimore this year. I think the addition of Derrick Henry was huge. And this is why you get him. You get him so when you have to go into Buffalo at the middle of January, you can step in there and give that guy 30 carries. You're not going to have to pass the ball as much as you want. But, people call him the Yeti for a reason. This is when he goes Yeti. This is why the Tennessee Titans were winning playoff games against the Chiefs, against all these other big teams for years, because they were able to establish the run. I do think James Cook, I'm going to give him credit, he can establish the run. But this, if it's a snow game, we are still going to see huge performances from these quarterbacks because they can throw, and their running stats this year were better than ever. And, shout out to Lamar breaking the all-time thing. But, Chauncey, what do you got to say about this quarterback matchup?
Dude, this is just one of those ones where, you look at everything and it's literally QB1 and QB2 or 1A, 1B, however you want to look at it. It really doesn't matter. But, so Lamar actually beats Josh Allen in every category. Now, that's not to negate what Josh Allen does, because there's a difference between what stats say and the emphasis that you do on the field, and you can feel the emphasis that Josh Allen does on the field. But at the moment, 41-4 for touchdown to TD interception ratio right now for Lamar Jackson, 28-6 for Josh Allen, which is the lowest of his career for interceptions. This is a great year. And 12 touchdowns on the ground as well. Only 4 for Lamar. 40 total touchdowns to 45. It is insane that these two quarterbacks are going up against one another. It's going to be snowing, but you're absolutely right. This is why they got Derrick Henry, because you can give the ball off to somebody 30, 40 times even if you need to. And you can still run with Lamar Jackson and Justice Hill. And you can do this right now. But it's in Buffalo, and it's how do you pick against Buffalo? How do you go against Buffalo? What do you know, Vegas? What do people out there know? Why? I know the Baltimore's defense hot. I know. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I get it. I totally get it. And they destroyed Buffalo earlier this year, 35-10. Destroyed them.
Yeah. So now we're looking at it like you mentioned, though, Zay Flowers being out. I think if it's a snow game, you're not worried about his receivers because you've seen these guys all step up. You're seeing Andrews and Likely, and both of these quarterbacks have good running games. They have kind of a sloppy, don't know who's going to get it receiving core, and then they both have 2 tight ends. So it's very similar offenses, very similar approaches. I do think it's crazy to say, but I'm looking at that 51.5, and if that goes down, I'm going to start watching that because it's interesting. I think this game could start slow and then act fast. I feel like this year we've had a lot of games have big first halves and then really nothing in the second halves in prime time. This is going to be a different game. I'm taking the Ravens on the road. This is when they get to the end. They got Derrick Henry, so if they got to the AFC Championship, had to play Kansas City, they could run him down their throats. And get ready, people, because Baltimore is about to run Derrick Henry down America's throats. And it's probably going to be beautiful. But we're not discrediting what Josh Allen did this year, how highly praised we've talked about him, all he's done. But, man, when you're looking at these offenses stacked side by side, I will take the Ravens.
I want to go Baltimore for so many reasons, and I don't disagree with you at all. And I can see it happening, without question. It's such a real possibility. But it just feels like this is the year for Baltimore to at least rematch Kansas City and Kansas City. You know what I mean? It just feels like that's the year. Would it surprise me if Baltimore won this game and they get their rematch against Kansas City? No.
Yeah.
It just feels like this is the year that Josh Allen's I'm taking my team to the Super Bowl. It does feel like that. I'm not going to lie. I'm not even a Bills fan, but it does kind of feel like that. And they're at home. I can't imagine that they lose at home in the playoffs. If they lose on the road, in Kansas City, it totally makes sense. I got to go with Buffalo here. They're the home team. It's not often that they're also at the money line, by the way. They're still minus 102, just for the record.
So not even really dogs yet.
they're not favored. They're to win necessarily, but they're not favored to win necessarily.
If it was Buffalo 3.5 and they were at home, you'd be like, "Whoa, Baltimore has dogs." But now Baltimore is favored, and you're like, "What do they know? Who are we supposed to pick?" And it's crazy.
And don't forget James Cook, versatile running back, great in the run game, great in the pass game. Could be a lot of different things going on here depending on how much snow there is. Buffalo practices in this. They play in this. They're used to this. I mean, same with Baltimore a little bit because it's, but
It's a little cold down there.
yeah, it's more cold up there in Buffalo. So I got to go with them. Can't believe we're also in the divisional weekend already. I can't believe it.
We say every week moves fast, but when you're really in the divisional, you're like, wow, we have 3 good weeks of football left for 9 months. So enjoy it, people.
And soon we're going to be down to 2 and then 1 and then off season. So enjoy while we can. That's all the time we have. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys. Enjoy the games this weekend. Going to be awesome. Stay tuned for our stuff for conference championships next week. Make sure to check out the Discord for all of our plays at Just Saying Football. YouTube and Spotify, as always, Just Saying Football. And make sure to check us out on Instagram, Just Saying with no G, WJS. Thank you guys, as always.
Enjoy.